Imagine saving up, I mean really saving up, to buy a brand new $70,000 pickup truck.
Oh, yeah. That is a massive purchase.
Right, and you buy it because, you want that raw mechanical power of a massive engine. You want the durability of stamped steel.
Exactly, the classic truck experience.
But then, just a few months later, you are forced to bring that rugged machine back to the dealership, and it's not because of a mechanical failure.
Let me guess. A software glitch.
You got it. It's because a single line of bad code in your backup camera just triggered a nationwide recall.
It's wild, but that is exactly where we are at.
It really is. So, welcome to this episode segment of Auto News Talk. Right now, the automotive world is undergoing a massive, undeniable stress test.
Oh, absolutely. It's a fundamental shift.
Yeah, we are watching a real-time collision between the high-tech, electrified future that automakers promised and the gritty mechanical reality of what buyers actually want, and honestly, what factories can physically handle.
That is the perfect way to frame it. I mean, the industry is essentially trying to rebuild the airplane while it is flying.
Right.
If you look at the entire supply chain from the global factory floor down to the local service bay, every single link is just being tested by this transition.
And that is exactly the terrain we are walking through in this segment. We are going to map out how production is dramatically shifting across the globe.
There's some huge moves happening there.
Oh, completely. Plus, we'll look at the creative geopolitical maneuvering automakers are using to bypass trade hurdles.
No loophole strategies.
Exactly. And then a very surprising pivot back to old school American muscle, the unintended consequences of putting so much software into our cars, and how all of this is changing the local dealership down the street from you.
It is a fascinating web. I mean, you change a tariff policy or retool a factory in Asia, and a mechanic in Illinois has to fundamentally change how they do their job.
It's all connected. So let's start at the very beginning of that chain, the factories.
Right, the ground floor.
Yeah. A breakdown of global production figures reveals a landscape that is just shifting drastically. I kind of want to understand the mechanics of this. It seems like some of the most established legacy brands in the world are, well, suddenly losing their footing.
They absolutely are. If you look at the raw production data, domestic Chinese automakers, companies like BYD, Geely, and Chery, they are expanding their output at an incredible rate.
Just massive volume, right?
Exactly. They are dominating their domestic market through highly agile manufacturing and a massive head start in battery technology. And because of that rapid expansion, legacy foreign brands are feeling an intense squeeze.
So the legacy brands are getting pushed out.
Yeah, we are seeing major players, specifically BMW and Mercedes-Benz, suffering double-digit production declines in that region. They simply cannot scale their localized EV production fast enough to compete.
Wow, double-digit declines for BMW and Mercedes. That's a huge hit.
It is a major disruption to their traditional profit centers.
Meanwhile, the map is expanding elsewhere. One of the reports notes that India is suddenly surging as a massive player.
Yes, India is becoming a global powerhouse. It's serving as both a massive domestic growth market and a strategic export hub.
Which makes sense given the population.
Right. In one reporting period, Volkswagen saw a massive scaling of their operations in India, with output jumping over 150%.
150%, that's explosive.
It really is.
Yeah.
They're proving that when you align localized manufacturing capacity with booming middle-class demand, the growth is just off the charts. But then you contrast those booming regions with North America.
Ah, right, where production has noticeably slipped.
Exactly. And that slip in North America isn't just a gentle, gradual decline.
Yeah, there is a staggering statistic in that global production report that honestly stopped me in my tracks.
The Ford data, right?
Yes. Ford's Canadian production fell by 99.5%.
It's almost hard to wrap your head around that.
They produced just 271 vehicles in an entire reporting cycle. 271.
For a massive global automaker, that number is basically zero.
Right. And the reason wasn't a sudden lack of demand or a parts shortage or strike. They simply had to pause to retool their Oakville assembly plant after discontinuing the Edge crossover.
Which really highlights the physical reality of this business.
Exactly. I think people forget that underneath all the advanced software, a car is still tons of stamped steel and aluminum. You cannot just push an over-the-air update to a physical assembly line.
No, you definitely cannot. It requires billions of dollars. You have to replace heavy machinery, reprogram robotics, and endure months of physical downtime just to change from building an internal combustion engine to a new EV platform.
So it's a massive vulnerability.
It is. And that highlights the core implication of this production data. First, China's expanding domestic base is permanently squeezing foreign brands. But second, it proves how highly sensitive North American output is to single model decisions.
Because if one factory has to stop, the whole region's numbers tank.
Right. The physical limitations of legacy manufacturing are a massive liability.
But there is a huge blind spot here. We know Ford stopped production to retool, but what this data absolutely does not answer is whether these drastic dips in North American output are just temporary, transitory bumps on the road to modernization.
Or if they mean something worse.
Yeah, exactly. Are they early warning signs of deeper volatility in the domestic manufacturing sector?
That is the open question keeping executives awake at night. And, because legacy automakers are bleeding market share in places like China and facing massive retooling costs in North America, they are being forced to adopt highly complex geographic strategies just to survive.
Which brings us to the geopolitics of it all. I have to admit, I am a bit confused by the corporate logic here.
How so?
Well, if Chinese electric vehicles are facing immense regulatory hurdles and massive tariffs in North America, how are legacy Western brands still partnering with them? It feels like a total contradiction.
It does feel like that until you look at the loopholes. Another analysis on international alliances makes the case that automakers are playing a very clever game of geographic chess.
Okay, walk me through that.
Take Stellantis, for example. For those who don't know, Stellantis is the massive parent company behind iconic American brands like Ram, Jeep, and Chrysler, as well as European brands like Peugeot and Fiat.
A massive global conglomerate.
Right. Well, they have formed a massive joint venture with the Chinese automaker LeapMotor, and Stellantis actually holds a 51% majority stake in that partnership.
Wait, so an established Western automaker is essentially acting as the financial engine for a Chinese EV brand's global expansion.
That is exactly what is happening.
But where are they actually going to build these cars if the U.S. has effectively walled off its market?
That is where the strategy gets really interesting. They're explicitly targeting Mexico for assembly. And they are also closely exploring Canada.
Why Canada?
Canada has a specific tariff quota system that allows a certain number of imported vehicles at a much lower tariff rate. Stellantis is looking at utilizing idle facilities they already own, like the Brampton plant in Ontario, to potentially assemble or process these joint venture vehicles.
The strategy's fascinating. And there's a specific detail attributed to that source on alliances that really shows their hand.
About the U.S. market.
Yeah, Stellantis is deliberately keeping these Chinese-branded LeapMotor vehicles entirely out of the United States.
Not even trying to bring them in.
Right. They are doing this to completely avoid political scrutiny and the heavy trade sensitivities surrounding the U.S. market. If they want to do collaborations inside the U.S., they are looking at non-Chinese partners, like Jaguar Land Rover.
The implication here is all about strategic risk management.
Spreading out the bets.
Exactly. This modular alliance approach allows a legacy automaker to spread their capital risk. They get to learn from highly advanced, low-cost Chinese EV capabilities, but they do it through a side door like Mexico or Canada without triggering a massive U.S. market backlash. It is incredibly pragmatic.
It is a geopolitical tightrope walk. But, the press release conveniently leaves out some crucial details.
They always do.
Yeah. What this strategy doesn't answer is the exact timeline. And we have no idea which specific models will actually roll off these proposed North American assembly lines. Right now, it is just strategic posturing.
Oh, for sure. It's mostly paperwork at this stage.
Yeah.
And that intense corporate pragmatism extends far beyond international trade. It is also dictating what happens right on the showroom floor.
Yes, let's talk about the consumer, because this is where the corporate narrative completely fractures.
It really does.
We just talked about automakers planning advanced EV joint ventures and investing billions in a high-tech future, but at the exact same time, down on the dealership lot, they are rushing to bring back the roaring V8 engine. Why are they suddenly moving backward?
It is a fascinating psychological study of the North American truck buyer. According to an analysis of powertrain strategies, Stellantis had to quickly reinstate the Hemi V8 in their Ram pickup lineup.
I saw that. They framed this under a freedom of choice strategy.
Yeah, freedom of choice.
That is a brilliant piece of marketing spin.
It really is brilliant because from a purely engineering standpoint, Ram has a newer twin-turbo Hurricane inline-six engine that is objectively superior.
It's better than the V8.
Oh, yeah. It has better horsepower, more torque, and better fuel efficiency than the old Hemi V8.
Wow.
And yet, despite the better technology, and despite Stellantis' broader EV electrification plans, they realize that simply having a V8 available dictates whether certain buyers will even consider walking into the dealership.
So if there's no V8, they just walk away.
Exactly. Competitors like Ford and GM are also stubbornly keeping their V8s alive for the exact same reason.
The brand perception is completely untethered from actual mechanical superiority.
It's all emotion.
Right. But there is a detail highlighted by the drive within that powertrain analysis that absolutely blew my mind.
The take rate.
Yes. Across the market, only about 25% of Ford F-150s sold actually have a V8 engine.
Which raises the obvious question, right? Why spend millions in development to keep an engine that only a quarter of your buyers actually purchase?
It reminds me of a high-end steakhouse.
Okay, how so?
Well, a restaurant will put a massive $100 dry-aged steak on the menu to establish their reputation as a serious premium establishment. Most people walk in, look at the menu, and end up ordering the chicken or a burger.
I see what you mean.
Right. But they went to that specific restaurant because the giant steak was an option. Offering the V8 provides a psychological halo requirement for truck buyers.
That makes perfect sense.
They want to associate themselves with the rugged capability of the V8, even if they ultimately drive off the lot with a more sensible, efficient six-cylinder engine.
That analogy hits the nail on the head. And the implication here is massive for the industry's bottom line. In the highly profitable full-size truck segment, brand perception and emotional appeal still override pure technical efficiency.
Emotion sells trucks.
Always has.
Yeah.
Automakers have to cater to that emotion if they want to fund their future EV transitions.
I have to stop you there, though, because I read that corporate announcement and I kept looking for the footnote.
The 40% claim.
Yeah. Stellantis claims that 40% of buyers absolutely demand a V8. But what this announcement doesn't answer is where that number comes from. The report offers zero hard internal data to support that specific figure.
That is a very fair critique. It feels like a highly convenient statistic.
Exactly. Designed to justify keeping an older, dirtier engine on the market just to keep pace with Ford and Chevy.
It might be entirely about optics. But whether you are driving off the lot with a complex twin-turbo inline-six, a retro V8, or a brand-new EV battery architecture, the reality is that all of these vehicles are essentially rolling supercomputers now.
Which brings us to the inevitable consequence. When you combine volatile global production, complex international supply chains, and highly sophisticated software, eventually things break.
They do. And when they break, it is no longer just a loose bolt or a snapped belt.
Right, you can't just pop the hood and grab a wrench.
Not at all. It has become a systemic issue. A report on recall trends unpacks some truly massive data. In one reporting period alone, recall volumes hit staggering highs.
How high are we talking?
We are looking at 447 mandates from NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, affecting over 28 million vehicles.
28 million vehicles recalled. That is a massive portion of the cars on the road. What is driving that volume?
The main culprit isn't mechanical failure. It is software.
Software bugs.
Yeah. 119 of those campaigns, affecting over 8 million cars, were purely software-related. We are talking about everything from backup cameras freezing, to advanced driver assistance systems glitching, to the vehicle's central computer just behaving erratically.
This is the result of shared electronic architectures, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's like putting the exact same motherboard in a laptop, a desktop, and a tablet. It creates incredible manufacturing efficiency, but if there is a bug in one piece of code, it instantly infects millions of vehicles across 5 different models.
That is exactly the danger. Now, traditional powertrain fixes are also getting wildly complex, requiring specialized parts and heavily trained technicians. But there is a bright side in the data.
Oh, good. We need some good news.
First-year repair rates are actually improving, crossing the 50% mark, and the massive airbag recalls that plagued the industry for years have significantly declined.
Okay, that is the good news, but there is a really dark side to this data, and it is a structural reality that is hard to shake.
The aging fleet.
Yeah. In a report on recall trends, there's a specific example pointing out that the average age of the U.S. vehicle fleet is now 12.8 years old.
Almost 13 years.
Right. And the data shows that over a 10-year lifespan of a vehicle, recall completion stalls at a 75 to 87% plateau.
Think about what that means for the average driver.
It means we have a dangerous permanent tail of aging, unrepaired, digitally complex vehicles sharing the highway with us.
That is a terrifying thought.
It really is. The implication is that cars are no longer just vehicles. They are, as the report explicitly calls them, interconnected digital platforms. A single bad line of code forces a massive recall.
But for the local dealers, if they handle it right, they can actually turn these complex, frustrating fixes into trust-building opportunities in their service lanes.
Right. If you can fix the software smoothly, you win a customer for life.
They have to do that. The ongoing relationship through software updates and complex diagnostic recalls is the new revenue stream. But what this data doesn't answer is how the industry can actually fix that long-term compliance gap.
Yeah, how do you find those older cars?
Reaching the second and third owners of a 12-year-old vehicle to fix a critical software flaw remains an incredibly difficult structural problem that no one has solved.
Which perfectly sets up the final piece of this puzzle. If you are a consumer trying to navigate a software recall on your digital platform, or, you are stubbornly demanding a V8 engine, you aren't calling the CEO of Stellantis.
No, you're driving down to the local dealership lot.
Exactly. And that classic independent mom-and-pop dealership experience is undergoing a radical transformation to cope with everything we just discussed.
It all comes down to scale right now. According to automotive acquisition data, we are seeing a massive wave of consolidation at the retail level.
Big groups buying up smaller ones.
Exactly. For example, Coleman Automotive Group has acquired McGrath Nissan, renaming it Nissan of Elgin. This isn't just a one-off sale. This is Coleman's 7th acquisition in a rapid expansion spree across Illinois.
And these deals aren't happening on a handshake over a round of golf anymore.
No, the deal was brokered by Performance Brokerage Services. This highlights how highly specialized, massive brokerage firms are the ones driving this mega consolidation.
They treat it like corporate mergers.
Oh, absolutely. These are firms boasting 90% closing rates and over 900 sales across 3 decades. For the consumer, the operations, the warranties, and the service continue seamlessly. The sign on the building changes, but the service bays stay open.
But the aggressive ambition behind this scale is what stands out. The acquisition announcement points out a specific detail about the founder of that auto group.
Kyle Coleman.
Right. He is targeting up to 40 dealerships in long-term projections. 40 local lots rolled into one corporate umbrella. Why do they need to be that massive?
The implication of that scale is pure survival.
Survival.
Yes. Dealership consolidation isn't just about wealthy owners buying more real estate. It provides the massive operational, digital, and marketing efficiencies that are absolutely required to survive in this current landscape.
So the mom-and-pop stores just can't keep up.
They really can't. If you have to service highly complex software recalls, purchase $100,000 diagnostic tools, and navigate massive manufacturer restructuring, a single independent lot simply doesn't have the capital. You need the unified back-end scale of 40 stores to absorb those costs.
That makes sense from a balance sheet perspective. But as with all corporate buyouts, it is the invisible changes that affect the workers and the local community.
The human element.
Exactly. What this specific acquisition announcement conveniently omits is what the internal staffing shakeups, the management restructuring, or the lengthy manufacturer approval timelines actually look like behind the scenes. We only see the shiny new sign.
Precisely. The local lot is now a highly capitalized node in a massive corporate network.
All right, let's pull all these threads together. We've mapped out shifting factory outputs in China and India, tariff workarounds in Mexico, the psychology of the V8 engine, millions of cars recalled for bad code, and the rise of the mega dealership.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did. So what is the overarching narrative connecting all of these sources?
When you look at the entire board, 3 dominant themes clearly emerge. First, we are seeing the digitization double-edged sword.
Okay, unpack that.
Software allows for rapid global innovation and flexible partnerships, like what we saw in the Stellantis and LeapMotor alliance. But it also acts as a massive vulnerability, triggering the complex recall surges we saw in the NHTSA service lane data.
Right, innovation comes with a cost.
The second theme is pragmatism over pure ideology. Automakers love to issue press releases about a utopian all-EV future, but on the ground, they are ruthlessly pragmatic.
Like with the Ram engines.
Exactly. We saw this in the Stellantis strategy report when they reinstated the V8s for Ram buyers just to protect their market share. And we see it in their strategy to keep Chinese-branded vehicles out of the U.S. to avoid political heat. They will do whatever protects the bottom line.
Regardless of their futuristic vision. And the third theme?
The third theme is the absolute necessity of scale. Whether it is Chinese domestic automakers dominating global production volume or a local dealer group buying up 40 stores in the Midwest, survival in this transition requires massive, unprecedented scale.
But it feels like automakers are trapping themselves in some severe contradictions here.
They absolutely are. There are two major tensions explicitly clashing across these reports. First, there is a glaring tension between the high-tech, electrified future outlined in the Stellantis Alliance report and the stubborn, old-school consumer demand highlighted in the Stellantis V8 strategy report.
They are trying to serve two completely different masters at the exact same time.
Yeah, they are. And the second contradiction is about the nature of time itself in this industry.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we see the blazing speed of modern car innovation and instant software updates in the recall surge report. But that completely clashes with the physical reality shown in the global production report, where a massive Ford factory physically has to stop and drop production by 99.5% just to retool.
Ah, right. Software is instantaneous, but heavy manufacturing is painfully slow.
Exactly.
I think that leads to a really powerful practical takeaway for the listener. For you, the consumer, the badge on the hood of your car means less than it ever has in history.
It really does.
You might drive a truck with a legacy American nameplate, but it might be powered by a retro V8 to cater to nostalgia, or it might rely on Chinese battery tech negotiated through a Mexican joint venture.
A total patchwork.
Yeah. And when it inevitably breaks down due to a software glitch, it will be serviced by a massive national conglomerate that just bought out your local dealer. Staying informed on who actually builds, owns, and services your vehicle is more crucial than ever.
It is a completely interconnected, incredibly fragile ecosystem.
It really is. And that leaves us with a final, provocative thought to chew on.
Just hear it.
As our cars become less about pistons and gears and more about lines of code and interconnected digital platforms, are we moving toward a future where we treat vehicles less like traditional physical assets and more like smartphones?
Wow.
Where the heavy metal hardware sitting in your driveway is really just an expensive, temporary vessel for the latest downloaded software update.
It completely changes how we value what we drive.
It really does. So here's a specific next step for you to keep in mind. The next time you visit your local dealership, take a hard look past the shiny showroom floor and into the service bays.
See who's working on the cars.
Exactly. Are they built for mechanics turning wrenches, or are they increasingly designed for technicians debugging code? That will tell you everything you need to know about the future of the auto industry. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode segment of Auto News Talk. Keep your eyes on the road and your software updated.